Very good morning all. I am Ritu Saxena, Assistant Professor, IPEM Group of Institution, 𝓤𝓸𝓻𝓮. Today we are going to discuss the introduction part of business communication. It is the core subject of MBA first year, first semester. As far as the meaning and definition of communication are concerned, the word communication has been derived from the Latin word that is communis. That means common. The communication can be defined as the process through which two or more than two persons come to exchange ideas and understanding among them. This definition involves two aspects of communication. The first is there is something which is transmitted, such as facts, feelings, figures, ideas, etc. It implies that there must be a receiver if communication is to occur. And the second is the definition emphasizes the understanding element in the communication. So the first part includes the receiver, and the second important aspect is understanding. Sharing of understanding would be possible only when the person to whom the message is meant understands it in the same way in which the sender of the message wants him to understand. So there must be a receiver as well as there must be understanding between the sender and the receiver. So thus communication involves something more than mere transmission of the message. Here I have mentioned two definitions of communication. One is given by T.S. Matthews and the other one is given by W.H. Newman and C.F. Sumner. The first is communication is so simple and difficult that we can never put it in simple words. And another one, another Mr. W.H. Newman says, like communication is an exchange of facts, ideas, opinions, emotions by two or more than two persons. According to these two definitions, there are 4 points which are being highlighted. That is, the process of communication involves the communication of ideas. That means there must be an idea, a message, which we are willing to communicate. Second is that idea should be accurately replicated in the receiver's mind. Third is communication is the two-way process and it includes the transmission of feedback also. Without feedback, communication process is incomplete. And it always be remain incomplete if there is no feedback in the process. So the purpose of all communication is to elicit some action. There must be action after completing the process of communication. Characteristics of business communication. The first point under this is communication is an exchange of facts, ideas, opinions from one person to the another. There are two persons, sender and receiver, and they both exchange their facts, ideas, and opinions. Second is communication is the continuous process and it is not a specific one. From our birth till death, every time, everywhere, every single second, we are communicating. So it is a continuous process which goes throughout our life. Next is communication is a two-way process. That means if we are saying something, the other person is listening something. And in return, he is giving the feedback, yes, I have understood whatever you want to make me understand. So it is a two-way process and it is incomplete without feedback. If the receiver is not able to give the feedback, the process of communication remains incomplete because sender will never understand that whatever he wants the receiver to understand. The receiver give feedback, then only the sender will come to know that my purpose is solved. Communication is a universal process and it is required at all the levels in all the fields and at all the times. Communication is a managerial function. There are several managerial functions performed in any organization and it is one of them. And it is required at all the levels right from planning to control. Now the role of communication in any business firm. The first point under this, which we are covering, is the smooth working of the business firm. The first point says that a business firm can work smoothly through communication. In any organization, a healthy and conducive environment can be created only by proper communication. If there is proper communication, the information is given and the feedback is being taken, then only the process is complete. And for this smooth working, there must be proper communication among the employees, between the management and the employees as well. Second part says this, it is the basis of managerial function. As we have discussed that there are so many managerial function in any organization, like planning, organizing, directing, controlling, motivation. So management cannot function properly without proper communication process. It helps in performing these various functions, and each and every step in planning, in organizing, in directing, in controlling, in motivating, communication is required in each and every part, each and every function. Prompt decision and its implementation. For taking decision, information is required. So information must be received before making any decision, and for this purpose, communication is the primary requirement. Next is building human relations. Healthy industrial relations are important for industrial peace and prosperity. This is possible not only with good working conditions and environment, but also with communication among the management and the workers. Relationships are always dependent on the communication, that how well you are communicating with the other person. So in any organization, if you want to develop healthy and conducive environment and building human relationship, it is required to communicate each and everything in time, as well as all the information which are required must be communicated to the concerned person. It creates healthy relationship among the employees and between the management and the employees. Through this effective communication, the management can convey its expectation to the workers, and workers can put their suggestions or their grievances before the management. And next point is job satisfaction and good morale. Morale is the human element that motivates a man to work in the right spirit. Good communication removes the possibility of misunderstanding among the parties concerned. Because when we are sharing the information, we are having each and every information in time, and we are able to work well in any organization. It creates a sense of satisfaction, and it creates and boosts the moral of the employees as well, and it decreases the misunderstanding among the parties. So it increases the moral of the worker, and each worker will definitely going to have job satisfaction. Now, what is the purpose of business communication? The first point under this is to exchange the information. This is the basic or main objective of communication, is to exchange the information with the internal and external parties. Internal communication occurs within the organization through orders, instructions, suggestions, and opinions. In the same way, there are so many external parties as well, like customers, like other business persons, like suppliers. So we have to communicate with them as well, and we have to share the information with them. Second point is to develop the plans. Plan is the blueprint of future course of action. Thus, plant must be formulated for attaining organizational goals. So in order to develop a plan, management requires information. And in this regard, the objective of communication is to supply required information to the concerned managers. Suppose we plan to have a party or we are planning for a party. We require information for that. And if we talk about the business organizations, so there are it requires so many actions, and it requires proper information if we are planning anything. So information communication helps in developing plans, and ultimately the objective of communication is to supply the information. And if the manager is having proper information in time, then he will be able to develop better plans. Now, how to implement? Again, communication is required to implement the plan. Once the plan is prepared, it is to be implemented. Implementation of the plan require timely communication with the concerned parties. So communication aimed at transmitting a plan throughout the organization and for its successful implementation too. Developing a plan and implementing a plan both requires proper timely communication. Now, to facilitate policy formulation, policies are the guidelines. Basically, they are the guidelines for performing organizational activities. Policies are also termed as standing decisions to recurring problems. Every organization needs to develop a set of policies to guide its operations. So it is very much required to develop the policies, formulate the policies, and for proper formulation, it is required to have information, and it can be done only through proper communication. Now, to achieve organizational goals, collective efforts of both managers and the workers are essential for achieving organizational goals. Communication coordinates and synchronizes the efforts of employees at various levels to achieve the stated goals of the organization. Next part is to organize resources. We are having, in any organization, we have lots of resources. Various resources are available in organization like human resources, material resources, financial resources, and so on. In organizing these resources in an effective and efficient way, it is the key challenge to the managers. It is being said that it is really very easy to manage machines, but it is really very difficult to manage human beings. Because human beings, each and every individual is different in terms of motivation, in terms of attitude, in terms of personality. So it is really very difficult to manage people. So it is the key challenge to the managers. And the only way to overcome this challenge is communication. Next part is to coordinate. Coordination is the basic management function. It involves linking the various functional departments of large organizations. Without proper and timely coordination, an achievement of organizational goal is impossible. So therefore, the objective of communication is to coordinate the functions of various departments and for this easy attainment of organizational goals. Now to direct the subordinates. If you want to give directions, instructions, so you have to communicate with your subordinates. So the job of the manager is to get the things done by others. And how he will get the thing done by others? Only by communication. Management needs to lead, direct, and control the employees. The performance of these managerial functions depends upon the effective communication. Now we will discuss the process of communication. Here is the picture before you. Sender, idea, encoding, channel, receiver, decoding, and then feedback. We will discuss one by one, step by step. The first is the sender. Sender is the person or the encoder who sends the message, and a sender makes the use of symbols, visual aids, graphics, words to convey the message and produce the required response. For instance, a training manager conducting a training for new batch of employees. So the sender may be an individual, maybe a group of organization. The views, backgrounds, approaches, skills, competencies, knowledge of the sender, they have a very great impact on the message. The verbal and non-verbal symbols chosen are essential in ascertaining interpretation of the message by the recipient in the same term as intended by the sender. The sender is the person who is the encoder of the message as well, and he encodes in the way so that the receiver can easily understand the message. Next is idea or the message. This is the subject matter of the communication. This might be the opinion, order, view, feeling, etc. And this is the key idea that the sender wants to communicate. It is a sign that elicits the response of the recipient. Communication process begins with deciding about the message to be conveyed. It must be ensured that the main objective of the message is clear. If the message is unclear, then the receiver will not be able to understand what exactly the sender wants to say or what exactly he wants to transmit. Third part comes the encoding. Since the subject matter of communication is abstract and intangible because it is an idea, idea is intangible and abstract. So its transmission requires the use of certain symbols such as words, actions, pictures. Okay. So these transmitting or the subject. These symbols is the process of encoding. That means we are converting that idea, that abstract or intangible idea, into the form which is understandable by the receiver. Now, channel or the medium. Channel or medium is the mean used to exchange, transmit the message. The sender must choose an appropriate medium for transmitting the message, else the message might not be conveyed to the desired recipient. So, the choice of the appropriate medium of communication is essential for making the message effective and correctly interpreted by the recipient. This choice of communication medium varies depending upon the features of communication, that how you are communicating, what is the message, what is the idea, and that then only we choose the medium of the channel through which we are going to communicate. And we must consider the receiver also while choosing the channel or the medium. That must be appropriate and convenient to the receiver as well. Next is the main receiver. He is the person who is the decoder, and he decodes the message which is sent by the sender. The message, the degree to which the decoder understands the message depends upon the various factors, as the knowledge of the receiver, the responsiveness to the message, and the reliance of the encoder on the decoder. Next part comes is decoding. Receiver decodes the message or understands the message which he has received from the sender to give him the feedback of the message. He tries to understand what exactly the sender wants to say. This part is known as decoding. Then only he is able to give the feedback. And it is the last and most important part of the communication process. Feedback is necessary to ensure that the receiver has received the message and understands it in the same sense as the sender wants. Here comes the understanding, which we have discussed in the very first slide, that there must be a receiver and there must be understanding between the sender and the receiver. Feedback is the main component of communication process, as it permits the sender to analyze the efficacy of the message. It helps the sender in confirming the correct interpretation of the message by the decoder. Feedback can be given through verbal mode, in verbal mode, or through words, or in the non-verbal forms like smiles, etc. It may be in the written form like memos, reports, and we can have the questionnaires as well. So we can take the feedback in many forms, and the main motive of taking the feedback is to know that the that the receiver understood the message or not. That is the main purpose of the feedback, and then only the process of communication is complete. Okay, rest we will discuss in our next lecture. Until then, take care. Bye bye.